In this video, we will be swapping the front and rear tires on a BMW R1200GS. The very first step is just to remove this rear guard. I loosen the bolts first and then used a power drill to take them off. To remove the rear wheel, it's just like a car tire. There are 5 Torx bolts that hold the rear tire on. So simply remove those and the tire will just pop right off, just like a car tire. Very easy. To put the new wheel back on, just simply put it on the axle, tighten the bolts, lay the bike back down on its side from the center stand just so that the rear wheel makes good contact with the ground, and torque them up to the manual's torque specs. Removing the front tire is a little bit more complex because of the front brake, but it's not too difficult. First, start by loosening the Torx bolts on each side of the axle and removing the 17mm axle bolt. Next, using a 13mm socket, remove the 4 brake caliper screws. That'll allow you to remove the brake calipers. Be careful on the left side of the speed sensor wire. Wiggle the brake calipers left to right just to keep the pad spread, so when you go to put the brake calipers back on, it's easy to get them back on. Next is just use a floor jack under the skid plate to just lift the front tire just a hair off the ground, make it easier for removing and replacing the front wheel. Once the front wheel is just slightly off the ground, I use a mallet and the other end of the socket wrench just to kind of nudge the front axle out, and then I could pull it out by hand. Be sure to take note of this metal spacer. If you're using a second set of wheels like I am, you're going to want to transfer that metal spacer to the other wheel. Finally, to get this tire back on, just simply slide the axle back in. Just be real careful of the speed sensor. Then I just hand tighten the 17mm bolt, and then go on each side and slide in the brake calipers. Then again, just being careful of that speed sensor wire. And once those are in, just tighten down all bolts. All the torque specs are in the manual for the brake calipers, the Torx bits on each side of the axle, and the 17mm bolt. So just refer to your manual for those torque settings. Before I put the front tire down, I like to just give it a quick hand spin to make sure everything is spinning correctly and the speed sensor is not bumping the actual sensor end at the end of that cable there. It's just a quick check. If you do that with a little hand spin, chances are you won't ruin anything in case you've got something misaligned there. That's it. You should be good to go after that. Just keep in mind the first time you pump your front brakes, it's going to feel like they're a little bit squishy, but after a few pumps, everything should be just fine.